Brought to you by SAP. SAP helps companies run like never before. Learn more by visiting us online.
Now, cybercrime is one of the biggest challenges in our hyper-connected age, and a lot of its spotlight has recently fallen on Africa, with Nigeria, Ghana and South Africa all high up on the list. With me in studio to discuss this and some of cybercrime's potential impact on infrastructure is Jason Gottsshalk, Associate Director at KPMG. Jason, a very warm welcome all the way from Cape Town.
Thanks very much for having me.
Now, these days, Africa is regarded by many as the final investment frontier, but that also opens up a can of worms, more connectivity to multinationals, and this, of course, leads to cybercrime. Can you give us a top-line overview of the cybercrime landscape in Africa as it stands right now?
Yeah, so I think you've mentioned one or two important terms there, really: connectivity. That's really what it's all about. We really see a direct correlation between the amount of connectivity leading into a country or continent per se, and the activity that happens from a cybercrime perspective. That's one of the key things that we see changing within the African landscape is the amount of connectivity, and then directly the associated cybercrime that follows that, because the connectivity is the enabler.
What is the biggest risk of cybercrime? I mean, let's just take an organization like KPMG. What is compromised information? What could that lead to for a company like yourself?
Yeah, so if you look at least from a South African perspective, the Protection of Personal Information Act, we're talking about private information around individuals and companies which are considered heuristic people also. The potential for that to be leaked into the marketplace has great brand reputation. So, us at KPMG, we talk about protecting the brand, and that's really what it's all about, is ensuring that privacy from that perspective. So from a KPMG side, besides ourselves and to our clients, we really stress around focusing on protecting yourselves from the potential impact of breach, or even breach itself, obviously being the primary concern.
Now, connectivity and technology are the leaps into the world of cybercrime. Now, in terms of technology, whether it's the understanding thereof or the skills needed to run it, Africa does lag behind slightly from its international counterpart. Now, does this include an awareness and understanding of security risk and assessment?
Yeah, so what we see is, besides your standard assessments that companies would go through in order to improve their security, look, even in established markets, America and Europe, you still see cybercrime rampant and breaches happening. The reason I think specifically why Africa is very susceptible is because we generally lack basic infrastructure across various aspects, one of them being the legislation that helps to enable to fight that cybercrime, as well as the other associated requirements, people to do the forensic investigations and so on and so forth. So I think couple that together and you can quickly see that African countries are focused on just really basics at the stage, of which cybercrime is probably not necessarily a priority, but we hope to see that change.
They focus on the basics, but some of the nations and the countries are connected to multinationals, which means they are international standards, policies and procedures. How does an African company deal with this, adhere to global standards, but at the same time have the parent company understand the restrictions in territory? I mean, we are dealing with 54 very different countries.
Yeah, look, at least from a legislation perspective, every African country has a different take of it, or take on it. From a multinational perspective, they drive the governance and the compliance down from the parent company, and really those companies have to comply. It's really, I suppose, a balancing act between budget constraints and resource constraints in terms of achieving that compliance. But I don't think it's necessarily becoming a negotiable anymore. African countries are moving ahead in terms of requiring companies to comply with its own legislation, let alone what's been driven down from the parent company. So we're seeing it happen, but it's, I think one has to take the context of the economic environment that you're engaging with, but I don't think you can really get away from driving that compliance yourself. I think it's become a non-negotiable. So, operating in the African landscape, I don't know if that's an excuse anymore. I think we have to really just take responsibility and do what we need to do in order to make sure we meet the compliance requirements.
So it's back to basics. Jason Gottsshalk from KPMG,
Back to basics.
Thank you very much.